Hello, this is Ian. Welcome to another video. Today we're doing another Hermitcraft Season Clockwork episode. We are reading chapter 4, and yeah, we'll see how it goes from there. Shall we? If you haven't read any of the other chapters, be sure you do so because things are about to escalate from here. Just saying. The days soon passed, sooner than Scar would have expected, as the sunlight slowly began to dim as it faded from the windowsill, making the main room he'd been hanging out in darken before he turned on the lights. He'd been spending his time with Jelly, playing with her as well as planning for future projects he had in mind. He could hear Devon somewhere in the kitchen, as he finally put away the book and quill he'd been scribbling in for a short period of time. As he headed towards the stairs, as he heard a meow at his heels, he stopped, glanced back at Jill. "Would you like to come up with me tonight?" he asked gently, as he looked at her into her green eyes, kneeling down to pick her up, holding her in his arms as she let out a little soft purr as he carried her up the stairs. "You really have adjusted well with your new home, haven't you?" Jelly mewed again, as he arrived the rest of the way up the stairs. As he walked towards his bedroom, when he stopped about halfway down the hall, hesitating for a moment, as he glanced back at his new friend. "Did you hear that? Or am I just imagining things?" Jelly said nothing, as he pushed his questions aside. As they walked to his bedroom, opening the door as he put the cat down and bounded towards the bed. As she bounded towards the bed, it practically leapt onto the bed, curling up into a ball near the foot of the piece of furniture. He smiled as he walked over to the chest, sitting in the room, opening it as he slipped the book and quill inside for safekeeping, alongside with a few random spare items that were just sitting pointlessly in his pockets, before closing the chest as he stepped back, startled when the floor beneath him began to shake, as he heard an explosion from down the hall, as he heard a shout of alarm from downstairs. He glanced over at Jelly warily, who had stood up when she heard the noise, her fur standing on end, as he walked over to her and stroked her. "It's okay, girl. I'm sure it was nothing. Probably just a creeper. You're not scared of creepers, are you?" The cat meowed again, with a hint of a growl in the tone, as she swished her tail fiercely. Scarlet looked over at the door before picking her up again, wanting to keep her close in case something was going on. He hadn't heard Devon shouting for him to evacuate or anything, only just a single shout. Should he check it out or just take Jelly and get out of here while he could? That's not a question. That should be a question. He walked over to the door as he put his hand on the handle. Just as the floor beneath him began to shake as he gasped in surprise, the door swung open as the floor below began to crack as he jumped into the hallway, just before the floor fell to pieces from some sort of explosion. He heard the sound of sizzling from above as he glanced up, seeing the closed-off roof, but yelping in surprise as something exploded from over him as he ran out of the way, still clutching Jelly firmly in his arms. "Devon? Devon, where are you?" Scar called out, glancing back at the partially destroyed hallway as a block of TNT fell through the hole and exploded, nearly wiping him off his feet as he neared the staircase, running down to the bottom as another explosion erupted from behind him. He spotted the front door ahead. It was slightly ajar as he went over to it, barely hearing Jelly's meow of protest as she leapt out of his arms and ran onto the floor, running out the door just as the entrance began to collapse. "Jelly!" Scar screamed in horror as he watched her disappear past the rubble as the door caved in, running to the window just in time to see her disappear into the trees. "Devon?" Scar called again, turning away from the window as he adjusted his eyes to the trapdoor, his only chance of escape other than the window, as an explosion blew up the ceiling above him, as he shouted in alarm, running for the trapdoor, nearing it just as the ceiling above it collapsed and buried the entrance in the process. Scar swallowed as he frantically put a hand in his pocket, reaching for the communicator as he pressed the button, hearing another explosion overhead as he looked up and over at the window, which had been shattered and half buried in rubble. As he broke for it, his eyes What the? Wait, what? his ears still ringing from the ongoing explosion. As he reached the window, as another few explosions reverberated through the air, he looked up just in time to see debris falling towards him as he tried to scramble back. But as he did so, he noticed the ceiling above him beginning to crack. Dreading the moment he knew was coming, he took a deep breath and he tried to break through the kitchen. Maybe there was a window he could climb out there, but he wasn't able to, as he felt something strike him in the back of the head as he gasped in pain, turning around just in time to see rubble falling towards him as he the floor with a scream, just as everything went black. Chapter 5. Scar groaned as he smelled the stale, dusty air, feeling the wooden floor underneath him as his head throbbed with pain. He was confused as he opened his eyes, seeing dim lighting all around him. The last thing he remembered was the attack, his house being blown to smithereens. Where was Devon? Was he okay? What about Jelly? Had she gone to find help, or was she just roaming the woods alone? Would he even find her again? He swallowed as he tried to push the questions out of his mind. No, of course he'd see her again. He would make sure of it. He first just needed to get out of here. He gasped in pain as he tried to sit up, feeling the weight of the rubble shifting slightly as something poked him uncomfortably. He tried to push it aside. Sounds of explosions had long since faded, and all that remained was silence. Strange, ominous silence. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Scar called, coughing as he struggled to figure out which way was out. He couldn't hear anything at first. Then he heard faint footsteps and voices, but they appeared muffled and distant, as he managed to free one of his arms to push some of the rubble aside, revealing the blue sky overhead. It was more of a midnight blue, perhaps even a little purple as the stars began to come out. He must have not been out long, but where was he meant to go? He managed to pull himself out of the rubble as he groaned in pain. Everything was sore. He felt bruised, like he'd been crushed under 1,000 weights, which honestly could have very well happened, as he used half a destroyed wall to get to his feet. Carefully pulling out the communicator, as he looked down at it, the signal was still blinking. He couldn't necessarily see where his friends were, but he knew where he was. He knew where he needed to go. He wanted to get there before the monsters got to him first. "What do you think you're doing?" the voice asked from behind him. As Scar jumped, having realized that he hadn't really taken the time to check his surroundings, to make sure that he was truly alone. Before he could turn around, though, he heard what sounded like glass shattering from beside him. He cried out at the man. A man in Mr. A's classic uniform tackled him to the ground. As he groaned, feeling the communicator fly from his hand, as it skated across the ground to rest on the feet of the man who had spoken. As the YouTuber watched this man looked down, picked up the device, examining it for a moment before pressing a few buttons. As he looked up and smiled at the YouTuber, "You won't be needing this anymore." The YouTuber watched as the man threw the machine down to the ground, smashing it as he stepped on it for good measure. No. Scar moaned as he tried to push the man, pinning him down off him, as he noted another figure coming around the corner. "Is the projector anywhere to be seen in the area?" the first man asked the new arrival. "Not that I can see, sir," the man reported. "I checked all the rubble and all the junk around here. There's no sign of him. He must have disappeared during the commotion." The first man chuckled as he looked down at the YouTuber. "Must have thought you'd book yourself out of there. Clearly you didn't. Clearly you didn't." "I wanted to make sure Jelly got out," he admitted quietly, as the pressure shifted at the ground. "How? Stop doing that." "I'll do what I want, YouTuber," the man pinning him down snapped. "We need to figure out what to do with him," the third man said as he walked over to the YouTuber's direction and gestured for his partner to move as he grabbed for the YouTuber by the arm as he pulled him up, the other man grabbing his other arm. "We've got time," the first man sighed as he shook his head, picking out a very similar communicator as he pressed a few buttons. Scar could see a part of the remains of the base was still crumbling into bits, as bits of wood and stone tumbled off structured walls. The man spoke something in the device. Scar wasn't paying attention as he looked over to where the wood would be. He attempted to fish into his pocket once more. "What are you doing?" one of the men warned as the YouTuber grabbed a rocket. "What does it look like I'm doing?" Scar asked as he jumped, trying to launch himself into the air, but the two men dragged him down as he was thrown against the wall as he groaned, part of the wall crumbling around him. "I'd suggest you don't try running off while we're holding you captive, YouTuber," one of the men sneered as he went down. "Mind holding him down so I can loot his stuff?" "Don't you even!" Scar tried as his partner grabbed him. The partner grabbed him and slammed him hard to the wall. The YouTuber smacked his head against the wood as he saw stars dancing in his vision. A few moments as more rubble fell around him. He struggled to pull away from the man, trying to take everything he could, any weapons, food, or any other means of possible ways of escape. As he blinked, staring up at the darkening sky as he began to hear the groans and moans of monsters beginning to spawn. "We need to get moving," one of the men said, as one of the soldiers pulled the YouTuber to his feet. Scar looked up around the area, spotting what seemed to be movement in the edge of the trees. "Help! Someone please!" Scar shouted, hoping someone might hear him as he felt himself being slung off his feet, slammed against the crumbling wall again as he gasped in pain, falling to the ground as he heard soft but subtle footsteps approaching, creeping, sneakily familiar footsteps, followed by a dreaded hissing sound. "Creeper!" Immediately, the two men near him leapt back and Scar attempted to scramble away from the wall behind him. As the wall behind him exploded, as he was knocked to the ground again, with a groan, going to sit up when he was kicked down again. As they watched one of the soldiers walk over to him and casually put a foot on top of his chest. "Can you please not? It hurts," Scar admitted through gritted teeth. "Look like I care," the man asked coldly. "We're going on a little adventure together. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this." "My friends," Scar tried, as he gasped in pain as the man applied more pressure as tears sprung in the YouTuber's eyes. "Your friends won't find you for now," the man said darkly. "They probably don't even know you're missing." "I sent a signal," Scar insisted. "We turned it off," the man pointed out. "They don't know where you are. They probably assume you came across another hermit. They'll never suspect you're possessed. Not until morning, perhaps." "They'll try calling," Scar insisted. "And when they... Ow! Save your breath, YouTuber. It's not worth it." As he leaned on his leg precariously. "We're here on orders by our boss to bring you to see him." "Well, that's certainly not on my list," a voice said from somewhere in the darkness, as the man on top of him was knocked off his feet as he yelped in surprise, tackled by some sort of figure as Scar blinked, confusion, groaning as he managed to sit up. Noticed figures running towards the commotion as the other two of Mr. Ed's men went to their comrade's aid. "Don't just help me! Don't let him get away!" The man shouted as he managed to shove his attacker off him just as the figure stepped back. Scar blinked as his eyes began to adjust, seeing the figure of what appeared to be a young boy. That could be right. Oh, could it? "Scar!" Beato's shout came from behind as he looked away, just in time to see one of the men lunging at him. He yelped in surprise, trying to get to his feet as he was knocked to the ground, groaning as he felt the man being tossed off him. "Get him out of here!" The boy's voice shouted from nearby as he heard a familiar grunt as new arrivals stepped in between the YouTuber and the two men. "Devin?" Scar asked quietly, partially relieved, as well as confused, as he felt someone grabbing his arm as he panicked. "It's okay, Scar. It's just me," Beato whispered quickly in his ear as Scar looked over, looking into those big, expressive gray eyes. The YouTuber relaxed, letting his friend help him to his feet as he felt his friend wrap an arm around him for support. Scar didn't say anything as he felt himself being half dragged away from the commotion behind as he heard Beato's going through one of his pockets to pull something out. Beato's voice soon returned as he asked, "You think you can hold on as we fly?" "I don't know," Scar admitted. "It hurts so much right now." "Okay, Okay, the YouTuber replied, tightening his grip on his friend. What happened to all the torches around here? I don't know. Most of them blew up during the explosions. Scar sighed as he groaned, looking up to see dark figures around the area. Alright, I'm going to try to fly and carry you. Do you think you can do that for me? B-Dubs asked, quickly, glancing over back at his shoulder. Where are we going? Scar asked. Someplace safer than here, that's for sure, the YouTuber stated with a chuckle. Do you trust me? Of course I do, Scar said sincerely. Good, now hang on. B-Dubs said... Excuse me. Oh, Mo. Good, now hang on, B-Dubs said gently as he leapt into the air. That's a weird tone. The sound of a rocket firing as Scar clutched his friend's shoulder, afraid to let go. The two friends held onto each other tight, not daring to let go of the other, as Scar glanced back down below, seeing Mr. A's men running into the shadows, followed by the two people who'd arrived with his friend to rescue him. He clung onto B-Dubs for dear life, afraid of what might happen if he let go, as he heard a shrill shriek from above. Yeah, I'm going to end that here. Maybe I'll finish it next time. Yeah, I think that's going to be it. Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I don't know what just happened to my voice then, but that was interesting. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Never that may be.